it, the dude, the firefighter guy, Trump, people that support him. I just want you to know, okay, just in case you're confused or it seems like I'm, you don't, whatever. If one of you were in the crowd and you're a conservative fan of mine and you end up, getting blown away or whatever, I'm making fun of you the next day on Twitter. I am, 100%.
I mean, do you not understand that to most decent Americans, and makes you look like a two-faced hypocrite? You sound almost gleeful, Destin, and I'm sorry, that makes you, frankly, despicable. You are inhuman.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we're going to watch a clip from the latest Piers Morgan episode. Piers Morgan's been fired with the content lately, and the best part is what he says to Destiny on the show, and it was absolutely well-deserved. The blue-haired cuck, even though he doesn't have blue hair anymore, the nickname suits him. It's a great nickname. In this episode, showed exactly how disgusting he was, and, just for advice for you guys out there, if you are a fan of Destiny's, you should not take advice from a man who lets other men plow his wife. Let's get into it.
Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, this is the problem. If you can't raise questions, serious questions about what's happened here, or suggest that it's odd, without being branded a conspiracy theorist by people like Cenk Uygur, there's a bit of a problem, isn't there? I mean, it seemed to me, not just negligence. There's something very strange about this whole incident and how it unfurled. I have never seen members of the public, nearly a minute before a shooting at a president, raising the alarm and telling people the guy's on the roof. Have you?
Yeah, well, Piers, I haven't been on camera with that guy in about 8 years, but I'm just reminded of the brain-piercing, serious headache you get listening to him. You just laid out very calm and cogent questions as to what happened to the man who is the ex-president and could be future president of the United States. There was either a catastrophic failure, which we're all acknowledging, or something more nefarious. All we can do is ask questions. The red-headed guy with the visor who was interviewed on the BBC saying that it was probably about 2 minutes, and we'll find out the exact details on that, about 2 minutes before, where he was warning law enforcement that there was someone on the roof. Well, in 2 minutes, Piers, right now I have an IFB in my ear. I have a microphone right here. That's what all of the agents around there have. And they're all connected to a network of people who are telling them where to look and what to do. I'm not of course, and I'm not an expert in this, but we all know this. Corey Mills happens to be an expert, and your interview was quite good with him. So the idea that 2 minutes went by and nobody looked at the roof, and by the way, the Secret Service director is now saying the reason they didn't have anyone staged on that roof was because there was a slope on the roof.
It's nonsense.
And they didn't want one of their agents to get hurt. I mean, I've got roofers out on my roof right now. There's a little bit of a slope. They have special shoes. They make it work. The whole thing is insane, but I would say at the political level, this has re-energized not just the Trump base, which was energized, but this new wide swath of disaffected liberals and UFC fighters and NFL players and just good, decent Americans to realize that Donald Trump is not the enemy right now. And this fake call for unity. Yes, I would like unity in a land of unicorns and everything else, but you can't on one day spend 4 years basically calling the guy Hitler and his supporters Nazi. Then he gets shots, and now we should have unity is just nonsense. I'm sorry.
And also for the current president of the United States to be asked, do you have any soul searching about the language you've used, given that days before this shooting, he told donors that it was time to put Trump in the bullseye. And then he tries to dance his way out of this by claiming, I didn't say crosshairs, as if somehow when you talk about human beings, bullseye or crosshairs mean any difference. Obviously, he didn't mean, I think Donald Trump should be shot. But obviously, if you're a deranged young lunatic with an impressionable mind, who the hell knows what that kind of language? We don't know yet, right, about any of the motivation. Apparently, there's a kind of very, very strange, again, a very strange lack of information that they've been able to find out about this young shooter.
Of course, but you also have to understand that there has been an entire media machine, mainstream media machine, and Democrat elite that for years, since before Donald Trump was president, have been calling him Hitler and his supporters Nazis. What would someone do if they truly believe that? I'm not directly linking this to Biden's bullseye comment, as irresponsible as it may be, or anyone else's specific comment. But over time in culture, if things get normalized, and yes, this man is going to put us in camps, and you can turn on MSNBC on any given day, and they're talking about how they're all going to be arrested and taken off the air, and what he's going to do to minorities and gays and everything else. All utter, complete nonsense. At some point, people might get a subtle message and then do something crazy. Again, we don't know if that was what happened right now, but we certainly can ask about it.
And I think
Hitler and Donald Trump should never be mentioned in the same sentence whatsoever. If you have any knowledge of history, if you've ever read a book on socialism, on Nazi Germany, these are not at all the same people. The New Democrat even published an article with Hitler's photo and Trump's photo mashed up together. One man was responsible for the death of 6 million Jews, and the other man was the best president of the United States in my lifetime. And Joe Biden even came out, called him a dictator. He said that people want a president, not a dictator. You're the sitting president of the United States. You can't be talking like that. It's not true. It's ridiculous. On the left and on the right, after Trump got shot, everybody's saying, wow, I'm glad he's okay. I wish him speedy recovery. I hope he's not injured. I wish his family the best. Our prayers are with his family. If he was anything like Hitler, you would not say that. You would be happy that he got shot at. Hitler was a horrible human being. This idea that the left has that America is going to become like the Handmaid's Tale is insane. The guy was in office for 4 years. Well, you tell me you didn't like the cheaper grocery prices, the lower gas prices, the safer border, all the jobs that were available to you? You didn't like that? To compare the man to Hitler is insane. It's a stupid comparison, but just like Piers Morgan mentions in this episode, if you say it enough to some woke, impressionable, delusional lunatic, they might actually believe it. And this is not coming from some woke ideologue TikToker. No, this is from the mainstream media saying this. It's irresponsible. Let's get back to it.
To be completely fair, I believe Donald Trump has spouted a lot of very ill-advised and occasionally very dangerous rhetoric. And I want both sides to dial it down, because actually where this leads to is where it's led to. And in Britain, we've had 2 members of parliament in the last 10 years murdered by people for political reasons, basically because, lunatics have wanted to eliminate them. Let me bring in Destiny, because you've been at the centre, as you know, of a massive online response to what you were saying. And I want to go through what you said, and I want to talk to you about this hopefully in a calm manner to try and understand what you were thinking. So on Saturday evening, hours after the shooting, you said, let me clarify, when I say conflicted, what I mean is I lean towards seeing it as a natural extension of a thing Trump and the MAGA kids support. So I don't think I have much sympathy about the attempt enough to chastise people celebrating it. You couldn't find it in your heart to chastise people for celebrating the near assassination of a man who was president of the United States and maybe again?
Absolutely not. Conservatives have completely bled that well dry. And the idea that they, after engaging in the most divisive and most extreme rhetoric that this country has seen in recent history, that they would come on and beg for sympathy, that it's escalated into some kind of violent confrontation, is absolutely insane. Even the idea right now of saying, well, if you call somebody a Nazi for so long, it's, what do you expect people to do? I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh call Obama a communist every single day he was on the radio. You've got conservatives that talk about how the mRNA vaccines were ways to sneak microchips into us. You've got COVID lockdowns that were done because the government was trying to take all your freedom away. They won't acknowledge anything that happened on January 6th. They say that the election was stolen and that your country is being taken from you. I don't think anybody should be killed. I don't think anybody should go out and kill anybody. But when you engage in this type of rhetoric and when you turn the temperature up over and over and over and over again, there is absolutely no room for you to be shocked or surprised. And there certainly isn't room for you to ask for sympathy.
But Destiny, you say you don't want anybody killed, and yet you say, I don't think I have much sympathy about the attempt to chastise people celebrating it. People celebrating the near assassination of Donald Trump. If you can't find it in you to chastise people who do that, aren't you just as despicable as the people you've just spent the last 2 minutes haranguing?
No, because they've led the way. This is the environment that they've created.
So you think behaving like the people you think are despicable is the correct course of action?
Not about behaving like the people who are despicable would be leading that type of rhetoric. It would be denying every single bad thing. How many times as a liberal? How many times as a liberal have you been on a show? Not you in general, but like a liberal been on a show and you've been forced to disavow all of the BLM riots, disavow all of the violence, and blah blah blah. And then you talk to conservatives about it. January 6th,
violence.
that was
That's
a false
good.
flag.
Yeah.
January 6th. Oh, like conservatives disavow January 6th?
Wait. First off, there's an entire cultural machine that has lied. There is an entire
we just saw it in real time. That's it.
What?
That's why conservatives deserve absolutely zero sympathy for anything that happens as a result of their rhetoric. That's it. It's so easy. Like, it's so simple.
But
I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about, but I would say this is the type of person that the internet has broke their brain, thus leaving them with very little empathy for their co-human. I mean, a good, decent father is now dead because of this. He's had his brains blown out because he was defending his wife and daughter. I would hope that you have a little empathy for that.
Let me jump in there because we have a clip of what Destiny has said about that very thing. Let's listen to this.
Fuck it. Fuck the dude, the firefighter guy. Fuck Trump. Fuck the people that support him. I just want you to know, okay? Just in case you're confused or it seems like I'm, whatever. If one of you were in the crowd and you're a conservative fan of mine and you end up, getting blown away or whatever the fuck, I'm making fun of you the next day on Twitter. I am, 100%.
I mean, I got to say, I just found that repulsive, Destiny.
Destiny, the blue-haired cuck, is a proper little rat. What a disgusting human being. To say that fireman who got shot deserved it for being there, how heartless can you be? This is not about politics when someone gets shot at a rally, okay? But even too far down the rabbit hole. These are still American citizens. This is somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's brother. This is a problem with a generation that was born with the internet. I was born in the late 80s. There's zero accountability. You can just go online and say stupid stuff and nobody holds you accountable. Or you say that in real life with people, you risk getting punched in the face. I remember a time growing up, my family was very conservative. My mother, my father, my brothers and sisters are very conservative as well. We all grew up the same way with the same morals and the same ethics. But my family had friends that were more liberal, that didn't vote the same way they did, Democrat, Republican. But even if they really disagreed on politics, not even close, not just a small difference of opinion, but completely disagreeing, even sometimes getting into arguments, they were still always able to have dinner together, sit down. You were able to have a neighbor that didn't align with you politically, but still your neighbor, still your countryman. We don't want to get to a point that you get so far deep in the rabbit hole of politics that the humanity gets away from you. And just to bring it back one quick second to him mentioning the vaccine, this bogus vaccine, I don't remember anybody panicking about microchips when it came to this shady jab. Look, I didn't take the shot. I'm not taking this untested vaccine that I don't need. But I don't remember microchips being a reason why I didn't take it. Destiny is a proper little turd. Look, and I'm not even a Biden guy. If you watch this channel, you know I'm not a Biden guy at all. And the same goes for these crazy woke ideologues out there. I can disagree with them politically, but man, do I not wish harm on anybody, on any side. I don't want to see some Biden supporter get shot. That would be horrible. These people have mothers, fathers, daughters, sons. I can disagree with them. It doesn't mean that I want them to be deleted from the face of the earth. Let's get back to it.
I wish that there is no room. There is no room for the hand wringing, and I will not participate in this anymore.
Oh, it's not hand wringing.
In the hand wringing. No, it absolutely is.
No, it's just that you are positioning yourself.
So well.
No, but you Destiny, let me explain to you.
Where conservatives can say anything.
No, I'm not a conservative.
They can have any conspiracy theory.
I'm not a conservative.
They can have any plot. They can do any of these things, and then liberals are supposed to sit here and be like, "Oh my God, it's so tragic."
No, Destiny.
Absolutely not.
Let me explain.
Absolutely.
Let me explain my position because I'm not a conservative. I'm not on either side in your race, right? Here's what I think about what you did. You'd like to fire off, as you've done so far in this debate, about your fury at how disgusting Republicans are, how inhumane they are, how they never have any empathy, blah, 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 blah. And then you yourself actually are exactly the person that you're describing. You are inhuman. You are somebody who seems almost gleeful that a young firefighter with a family, with a wife and children, who he was protecting as he was shot dead, that he deserved what was coming to him because he went to a President Trump rally, a man who was President of the United States until recently for 4 years and maybe again. You sound almost gleeful, Destin, and I'm sorry, that makes you, frankly, despicable.
I don't think I'm gleeful about anything. I don't think anybody should die. I don't think anybody deserves to die. But you want to talk about gleeful? Look at the conservative response to Pelosi's husband when they broke in.
I can answer that.
Mainstream media figures
I can answer that.
I don't care.
I can answer that.
With all due respect, I don't care what your answer is.
Let me answer that.
The reality is that conservatives have been turning the temperature up on the rhetoric. They have been making fun of these types of events for years, and now when something happens to them, now they're looking for sympathy from the liberal side. Absolutely not. It's insane. It's unhinged that you can conduct yourself in such a manner and expect people to feel sorry when things happen.
Why should anybody on the right listen to a word of your hectoring and lecturing about how they should behave? And by the way, for the record, the mockery of Nancy Pelosi's husband when he was attacked by an intruder with a hammer was also despicable, right? I can see despicable behavior on all sides, and I'm happy to call it out when I see it. You, however, want to present yourself as this great kind of standard bearer of decency who sees outrageous behavior on the right time and again and is incensed by this disgusting, inhumane behavior. And yet time and again, since the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, you have displayed exactly the same kind of inhumane behavior. Fuck him about a fireman who is killed because he attends a rally of a guy he wants to vote for.
My issue with the MAGA kids is not that they are not empathetic. My issue is that they support a president that led an insurrection against the United States. I'm not here to tone police over their empathy.
80 million people voted for Donald Trump last time around.
That's great. 80 million people voted for a guy that tried to insurrect the government, and it looks like they might try to do it again. I mean, like, I don't know what you want me to say. These are the facts on the ground. The idea that
you don't like attacks on democracy. So presumably you would unreservedly condemn the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, because that's one of the most egregious attacks on American democracy in modern times. Presumably,
I don't think that
you will
anybody
take this opportunity, given you are so determined to protect the integrity of democracy, you would find it absolutely outrageous that someone has tried to assassinate a president, right?
If the other conservatives on this show want to say that it was absolutely outrageous
that
Donald Trump attempted to coup the government,
I'm asking you.
Then maybe I would. Yeah, no, I'm not going to get on my knees and beg for forgiveness or show sympathy to conservatives.
I'm not asking for that. I'm asking you to condemn what happened as an egregious attack on democracy. Can you do that?
No, I won't. No, I won't.
You can't do that. You see, so why the hell, frankly, Destiny,
absolutely not.
Why the hell should we listen to a word you have to say about...
Why do you think conservatives haven't been listening to a word that liberals have said about anything for 8 years?
Right,
what do you think is going to change?
They?
You think that if liberals come out now and they go, oh my God, this was so horrible,
but here's
you think they're going to go, wow, that is true. Maybe that should also
Charlie, I'll bring you in at the end of this, I promise you, and you'll get a good chance to respond. But here's my problem, Destiny, with your whole position on this, right, is that you don't actually have anything inside you that you want the other side to have. You don't have any of the empathy. You don't have any sympathy. You don't care that someone tried to assassinate Donald Trump. You don't care that a young fireman with a family was killed in the process. You don't actually. You are not the person you want these other people to be. And all you do is play whataboutery with every question I give you. And I'm just startled.
It's not what about it? We're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about the temperature of this country. But here's a question for the two panelists. What percentage of this event happening was due to Donald Trump's rhetoric? What do they think the answer to that question is?
What percentage could it be that the other side, as we've just heard from Dave Rubin, has spent 8 years calling Donald Trump the new Adolf Hitler, a person who was responsible for the murder of 12 million people, including 6 million Jewish people in a Holocaust. Last time I checked, Donald Trump hasn't murdered 12 million people. So much as you would like him to be the new Hitler, he's not. But again, to an impressionable young deranged mind who has easy access to guns, that can be easily interpreted as an existential threat, said President Biden. Somebody that needs to be put in the bullseye, said Biden.
Okay,
only last week. And guess what? Somebody then comes forward and tries to kill the existential threat.
Who is engaged in more divisive rhetoric over the 8 years? If you had to guess, if you had to assign a rough percentage,
again you're playing whataboutery. Again you're deflecting.
It's not whataboutery.
Just as Joe Biden did last night. Just as Joe Biden did with Lester Holt on NBC last night. Every time he was asked, "Have you done any soul searching about your own rhetoric, your own ill-advised use of language. He deflected it back to attacks on Trump. And you're doing exactly the same thing with Republicans.
And I will do the exact same thing.
You say Republicans
you want Biden
you say
to
that they are
disavow a
lacking in
comment when Donald Trump was saying Second Amendment people could maybe do something about Hillary Clinton. Like, no, it's absolutely deranged. The double standard that's being asked here is insane. And you heard both of them say it earlier. How much did Donald Trump's rhetoric contribute to the current environment? Oh, not much at all. Like, no, yeah, I'm not going to say anything to these people. Of course not.
You see, Destiny,
You seem oddly unversed in any of the current events that have happened over the last couple of years. First off, politics is downstream from culture, right? And what has happened to our culture in the last 8 years? What has happened to our culture is that the mainstream media has lied about everything, always to the detriment of right-leaning people, whether it is the Russia hoax or COVID or Brett Kavanaugh's a serial rapist or the Covington kids are racist or Jesse Smollett was hoaxed, was lynched, or whether it was very fine people on both sides. Every single lie always goes against right-leaning people. So they are slightly annoyed and distrustful of people like you and other people in mainstream media who lie about literally everything. So perhaps
literally
their
everything,
empathy,
like biolabs and Nazis in Ukraine, or like mRNA vaccines that are causing 20% excess deaths. There it is. Yeah, or the fact that COVID lockdowns were going to go on forever and it was just an authoritarian abuse of power. Or yeah, of course. Like, come on, dude. Conservatives are masters of misinformation, and it's happening right here.
All right, let me bring in Charlie. He's been waiting very patiently. Charlie, thank you for being so patient. Things have obviously got quite heated quite quickly. Let me give you your chance now to have your say after what you've been hearing from Destiny.
Yeah, well, first of all, Destiny represents to me a certain subsect of the left, I won't call it everybody, who likes to bully others into saying exactly what they want to hear. And if they don't say it, then you all of a sudden are the problem. And they handle it exactly like he's been handling it on the show. It's like a child throwing a temper tantrum. You can't get a word in edgewise. They just kick and scream and yell until you ultimately say, I've had enough, just say what you want to say and back down. And that's exactly what we see a lot of times from people on the left. And it infuriates me, because just like we saw on Saturday with the near assassination of Donald Trump, which that is exactly what it was. It was an assassination attempt, yet we have, Dave, like you mentioned, all of the mainstream media putting out egregious headlines such as from CNN, Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles former president and crowd, which completely mistells what actually happened.
Accurate. Here it is. This is the conservative, this is the game right now.
It is not accurate.
It's the lies right now. You know, Fox News ran that same type of
first
headline,
of all,
right?
we are allowed
Right?
in this country to ask questions. There was a lot of things that were very off on Saturday,
and other
from the way that the Secret Service handled.
So, you know, I love this country. God bless, I guess. Yeah.
You can see. There you go. He immediately resorts
to
here we go.
Yes.
Call you
here we go.
And that is exactly the childish demeanor that I'm speaking about. On Saturday,
don't talk over each other. Let me just ask you this, Destiny. You were asked on that clip we played earlier if you'd have the same attitude if it was your parents who'd been killed at a Trump rally. And you replied, it's less end-of-life costs for me. Would I lose sleep over it? No. Do you understand how grotesque that sounds?
It sounds grotesque, but the environment that we're in right now is grotesque.
But why do you want to sound grotesque? I don't understand.
You cannot engage in behavior that leads us to this point, that brings us to the precipice, and then say, wait a second, wait, are you taking this a little bit too far?
So just to be clear, hang on, Dave.
We are exactly here
just to be
because
clear,
of what conservatives have said.
Just to be clear, Destiny,
if
it was close members of your family or close friends who had gone to that Donald Trump rally and who'd lost their lives, one did, and two are critically wounded, if they had died there, you would lose no sleep over that. Is that your position?
No, of course I would be sad. It would be tragic, of course. And the closer they are to you, the more sad it would be. The same way that if you had a child that, you know, tried to rob a store and the child got killed by the police, that would also be tragic and sad.
So you wouldn't think fuck
them
because they're your family then? You'd have a different rule for your own loved ones.
I'll say what I just said in the last segment. Destiny's a slimy little rat. Destiny's a man who let multiple men shag his wife, shared his wife with many dudes, and then she left him. Who didn't see that coming? How mentally weak do you have to be? And look, listen, if you're dating a girl that wants to be passed around and shared, she might not be the greatest woman in the world, but as a man, like, It's a foreign concept to me. But these are the people we're dealing with. The man said he wouldn't lose sleep over a family member being shot because they were a Trump supporter. What a psycho. If I had one of my family members or a great friend of mine that was a Biden supporter, I'd try to slap some sense into them probably, but God, I would not wish them to get shot or hurt in any way, shape, or form. That would be devastating. I don't care if somebody's got the polar opposite views on politics than I do. I don't wish them death just for their political views. And that being said, Destiny, he's quite aggravating to listen to, isn't he? He's on par there with Cenk Uygur. Let's get back to it.
Would I feel more upset if a person very close to me died rather than a person farther away from me died? Yeah, I think the answer there is yes.
Yeah, but you weren't just not. You weren't just. Just to be clear, you weren't just not upset by the death of that firefighter, who'd given great service as a firefighter to his country. You were gleeful, and you said, "Fuck him." Fuck him.
I'm not. It's
Would
not
you
about
say
being gleeful.
fuck them if it was your family and friends?
Because he was a Trump supporter.
I would say that if they go to a rally like this and they support an insurrectionist president and something happens to them, I would feel sad on a personal level because they're my parents. But again, I learned from them more than anyone else. I grew up in Nebraska. You learn that if you mess around and if you do dumb stuff, that there are going to be consequences.
And would you think? And would you think? All right. And would you be happy to say, you know what? Fuck them. About your own parents.
His rhetoric is far more dangerous than I've ever heard anything that Donald Trump said. What he's saying right there. Yeah. He is saying you should have no empathy or sympathy for your fellow human. You know, we can all disagree. We can disagree about politics, of course. We can even disagree about how the media frames things and everything else. But he's basically saying show up to a rally and get killed. And that is absolutely psychotic. I'm sorry. And, you know, the other part of this that's strange when people are calling for unity right now is if this had happened to Joe Biden, if Joe Biden had been shot at and had part of his ear blown off, the very people calling for unity right now would be calling for the rest of us to be put in jail. So there's a strange asymmetry there as well.
And I would ask this.
The strange asymmetry was Biden trying to make a phone call to the wife of the killed firefighter and her rejecting the call and Donald Trump not even reaching out, okay? That's the asymmetry. When you talk about it's just politics, this is the cancerous brain rot that conservatives have fooled everybody into thinking. It's not just politics to think that vaccines will kill you, okay? I've got 3 dead family members from COVID. My mom won't get a vaccine, okay? After both of them were in the military. These guys went up and down.
I'm not vaccinated, thank God. Nobody
don't worry, we can all tell.
We
can all tell. My parents went up and down a line when they did basic training for the Air Force. They got 20, 30 vaccines each. My dad has a vaccine injury in his shoulder, and the idea of not getting vaccinated was unconscionable to them until the conservatives spread these messages that are just politics.
Let me ask you this, Destiny. Let me ask you this,
When science has shown that the vaccine actually was one of the worst things you could have done for yourself. Thank God I didn't get vaccinated. I thank God every single day I didn't get vaccinated.
Let's not get. I don't want to get. I don't want to read. I don't want to get back into COVID. I don't want to get back into COVID, right? Hang on, Charlie.
Asymmetry of it all.
Hang on, Charlie. I don't want to get down into COVID again. I want to stick to this story, and I want to ask you, Destiny, about Elon Musk, who is responded to one X user who was calling for him to demonetize you on the X platform. And he said, you're right, this is not appropriate content for advertisers because of the offensive tweets you were aiming at Trump supporters. What is your response to Elon Musk?
The same response as it always has been. Elon Musk is a thinly veiled, I would say, like anti-woke, anti-SJW, basically right-wing supporting guy. And if you say things that they don't like, of course they'll demonetize you, they'll cancel you. Conservatives are some of the least principled people in the universe when it comes to freedom of speech. As soon as they have any power to demonetize or spam report somebody's, sponsors or anything like that, of course conservatives will jump onto it. My account also was demonetized, I think in like 12 hours. Thank you very much, Elon Musk. Although I do notice that my docs has been floating around Twitter for 2 days now, and tons of accounts that I've been reporting that haven't been banned yet, but I'm glad we've got our priorities straight there.
Again, here's what I think we're all struck by. Your position seems to be that anyone from Donald Trump to his supporters who represents their thinking, their ideology, their political views, that if they are killed by an assassin at a rally, then they deserve what's coming to them, and in your words, fuck them. I mean, do you not understand that to most decent Americans and to decent people around the world, that is incredibly offensive and makes you look like a two-faced hypocrite, somebody who wants the other side to behave to a certain level of decency, but is himself incapable of displaying it?
the conservatives don't have it in them to have that level of decency.
So why don't you rise to a higher bar? Why don't you yourself show them the promised land, Destiny? Show them the way they should be behaving.
Have been doing it for 8 years. There's nothing to be gained there. So instead, we'll just have a laugh instead. When you're asking for this type of decency, you're saying like they did for Pelosi's husband, like they did for BLM people, like they did for the endless. He didn't die, but he got the crap beat out of him with a hammer, and they made jokes about his gay lover. Yeah, and by the way,
the jokes were disgusting. Why can't you say the same thing about the people making mockery of Trump? Why do you join the mob?
It's not just because it's not just the jokes. It's the underlying substantive analysis as well. It's the lack of responsibility for January 6th. It's the lack of responsibility for the Gretchen plot. It's the lack of accountability for all the comments made about BLM protesters, George Floyd,
by your yardstick,
for all of these.
But by your yardstick, what the Republicans should do in response is simply say, "Fuck all of them. Fuck them all. Who cares?"
Piers, that's what you're not understanding. Piers, listen to me. This is what you're not understanding. You keep bringing this up to me, like, well, Destiny, if you act like this, aren't conservatives just going to do?
Back your words
and then you say a thing, but they've done this for 8 years.
Right. So the other side is horrendous. Therefore, I'm going to be even more horrendous. It's so unprincipled.
The horrendous part about the conservatives isn't just the rhetoric. It's the underlying factual denial of reality. That's the biggest. That's the huge issue. That's the big bad part.
Let me bring Charlie back to respond to that. Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the opposite. I think that, Destiny, you are completely fueled solely off of emotion, whereas I think that, I'll say conservatives, even though I think that it spans past conservatives, when they look at the facts of the summer of BLM, the BLM movement as a whole, January 6th, this assassination attempt, when you look at the facts, things unfold before your eyes and they reveal themselves to be actually what they are. There's a lot of evidence that has come forth since all of these events in the past have occurred. And they have shown that exactly what conservatives were saying were absolutely correct. Just like the assassination attempt on Saturday, we look at what went wrong. We look at not only was this one rooftop unguarded, but how did the gunman know that the rooftop was unguarded? Why was it that local law enforcement alerted the Secret Service moments before shots were fired?
There it is. There is actually a very good question.
Do you think January 6th, do you think J6 was a false flag?
I think January 6th, there's a lot of discussions to be had. I think there's a lot of facts that came forward. They're definitely.
I will never give sympathy to this side. These guys are destroying the country.
Destiny.
There were agents present. We know for a fact.
Destiny, here's your problem with me.
There were agents present on January 6th. We saw the tourists being ushered into the Capitol building. They're being treated like terrorists. And in fact, several months ago, Vivek Ramaswamy said it's only fair that we're able to have a decent conversation about all of this.
Okay, let me say what
we're not able to have a conversation about it because of people like you.
Let me just say what I think about January 6th, because I wrote it at the time and I believe it today. I thought it was a shameful attack on the heart of American democracy. It was an attempt to thwart democracy taking place. It should never have happened. Everyone involved in any violent act that day was utterly shameful. Donald Trump's rhetoric that day was appalling. All those things are completely true, Destiny. I can happily subscribe to that.
Neither of your other guests.
But here's the thing.
Neither of these guests agree with that.
But if I'm a Republican,
Piers, do you understand? Piers,
but if I'm a Republican,
but
here's the thing, Destiny. If I'm a Republican listening to you, I'm thinking, hang on. This guy thinks we're all disgusting. We're reprehensible. We have no empathy. We have no this, no that.
Absolutely,
and yet he himself is proud of being even more disgusting.
Not absolutely. And then I would say, wow, well, nothing has changed from since before COVID, before the vaccines, before J6, when they thought the election was stolen, when they thought that we were forced into lockdowns for no reason, when they thought that George Soros and the World Economic Forum and the IMF banks and everybody were taking over the country and the Federal Reserve was devaluing our currency. Like, it's all the same. Nothing has changed.
Let me ask you this.
I'm curious. Wait, can you ask
one last question,
do they agree with
Destiny?
Any part? Do they
one
agree
last
with
question
any part
for
of
you.
your characterization of J6?
Destiny, one last question for you. Are you pleased that Donald Trump got shot?
Am I pleased? No, absolutely not.
What is your emotion to the shooting?
My emotion is emotionally what? In terms of his personal health, is absolute indifference.
No. Do you condemn the shooter shooting Donald Trump?
No. Not here, not on this program, not in front of these people. Absolutely
You do not condemn a deranged shooter shooting
you are truly
Trump.
just a child. This is not.
Actually,
this is not a
no.
competition
You know
here.
what,
We're
Charlie?
just trying to be decent human
You know what,
beings.
Charlie? It's not actually the behaviour of a child. It's the behaviour of somebody who's completely lost his moral compass and any sense of decency.
You're right. A child wouldn't.
And I'm going to go to Dave Rubin. Dave, let me let Dave Rubin respond to what you've just heard from Destiny.
I mean, it's actually one of the most disgusting things that I've ever heard in my life. My entire staff in my studio right now all gasped at that. When I happened to be at Target, the store Target we were checking out when I saw it on Twitter, and my heart actually sank. And I know that that is the feeling of probably 200 plus, if not 300 plus million Americans, even many of whom would vote against Trump and do not like Trump and all of those other things. The idea that you can't show sympathy or empathy for that is so profoundly sad. I would also add one other thing here, which is that the reason you're so emotive and screaming beyond the Red Bull, and dude, just ease up, man, it's not healthy for your heart, is that you really don't have good arguments, so you're petulant and screaming as opposed to just trying to work things out. We're allowed to ask questions about these things, but I would hope that you would try, as Piers is pointing out, instead of always reaching for the lowest common denominator and they're bad, so I'll be worse, I would hope that we could try to be a little bit better than that. And by the way, I think that you're seeing that right now at the Republican National Convention. They're not going crazy over all of this. They're applauding the fact that Trump's there. They're rallying around the new VP choice. And I think you're going to see a wide swath of America that maybe didn't come out for Trump before and they're not traditional conservatives.
I totally agree.
I think you're going to see them support Trump.
I totally agree. And I would say to you, Destiny.
Nothing is more
I would say
emblematic
to
of
you,
the situation
Destiny.
than the fact that
Destiny.
the VP choice is a guy who's also said that Donald Trump is like Hitler.
Yeah, I would
think it's
say
the perfect cherry on top to everything.
He's apologized for it and said he got it wrong.
Yeah, I would say this to you, Destiny. Lester Holt asked Joe Biden last night, has he had any soul searching? Right? I think after this debate, you may want to just go away quietly and think about some of the answers you've given and think about the double standard of demanding a certain pattern of behavior from others that you do not sign up to. And you may or may not take my advice. You may or may not take my advice. I'm just saying, on reflection, you might conclude that the best way to persuade other people to behave in a better way is not to behave in an utterly degrading way yourself. That's all.
I think deleting a YouTube channel only takes one click, Destiny.
Right.
Yeah, right after you, Dave.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all very much to my panel.
And Destiny can't answer a question without deflecting to another topic. Hey, let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about January 6th. Bro, answer the question. He likes to bring up COVID. Let me tell you something. I am not vaccinated. I've never had COVID. And all my friends who are vaccinated have got COVID like 2 or 3 times. Every time they get a shot, it seems they get COVID. Piers Morgan, I will say more and more, this guy's getting himself into my good graces. He seems to be taking the common sense line, which is what our side seems to be right now, the common sense side, because the left has gone too far left. Now, we're not talking about the 1990s liberal or old school liberals here. We're talking about a group of wacko ideologues. Marxist ideologues is what we're talking about right now on the left. So I'm glad to see Piers have this resurgence, this comeback. I don't know if he really went away, but it seems like I didn't hear about him for a few years. I know he was on American Idol or Britain's Got Talent or something of the sort, but other than that, I didn't really hear about the guy. I like this new show. I like that he has popular, I guess you would call them YouTube, political commentators out there to come debate these topics. And the good thing about Piers Morgan is he attracts the normies, right? The normal people in society, not myself and not you guys who probably listen to my channel, who are really into politics, who know a lot about it, who follow this stuff. The normies, they get the headlines from the mainstream media, which is very skewed into one direction. Piers is out there. He seems to be taking the common sense ground. Piers is not a conservative. But how do you agree with this leftist ideology that they're preaching these days? So yeah, I'm liking his show. I'm finding myself that I'm listening to it more and more. It also gives me content to share with all of you. If you enjoyed this video, I appreciate you watching this long. If you're still here, consider subscribing to the channel, help it grow. Smash that thumbs up button for your boy, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.